Okay, Rebbe Yehuda says, Havi Zachir b'Talmud. You have to be careful in learning. Shegigas Talmud Olat Zada. An accidental mistake in learning is the equivalent of a zadon, of an intentional rebellious act. It's a hard one to hear, right? You know, generally, you see the idea of shogeg and zadon. So, using Shabbos, for example, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, right, sound asleep, you hear a noise, you wake up, you reach up and you turn your bedroom light on the bedside table. And then you realize it's Shabbos. That's a shogeg. Because you are aware that turning on a light is forbidden on Shabbos, but you were not aware that it was Shabbos. Right? That instant as you woke up, you were not clear. Right? You weren't saying, I hate God, let's go fight against God and turn on lights. It was, what's that noise? Click. Right? You didn't know it was Shabbos. Yeah. That's a shogeg. God is very lenient. God is reasonable. All other things, when we talk about God, right? God's reasonable. It's not going to whack you for a shogeg. I mean, there's some marginal cost, but it's trivial. Or it may be that you know it's Shabbos, but you did not know that it was forbidden to do that. You're standing in your kitchen and you're tearing through something or you're doing something and someone says, you can't really do that on Shabbos. And you think about it and you say, I guess you're right, that would fit into that category. Whoa! That's a shogeg, right? You're not a bad guy. You're not rebelling against Hashem. You're not, right? That's not a problem. Right? Shogeg, amazed, this bad, people always think of Zadon as a major thing. But it could even be that, you walk up and it's Shabbos and you reach out and you grab the handle on your sink and you realize your hand is on the hot water thing. Mm-hmm. And your brain says, take your hand off the hot water thing, turning that on will be cooking. And cooking is an issa d'oraisa and you shouldn't do it. And your hand says, you think that's so? Well, and you turn it on, and you laugh inside your head saying, ha ha, I just don't really care because it doesn't really matter anyways. Right? Just as an aside, all these mitzvahs are very, very finely defined. When you talk to people and says, why are mitzvahs so finely defined? You see people go crazy over, trivialities. So the idea is that there has to be a place where a kid, who's just getting started, can fight on Shabbos, where he's got to struggle to keep Shabbos. There's going to be some aspects where you're working, because the idea of a mitzvah is an action you take, out of free will, right, to choose to be closer to God, right? So there's got to be a place, simple laws. Don't drive your car. So the guy who's just starting, he goes, I really want to go to the Dodger game today. Can't do it. And now he's just made a choice that's pro-Shabbos. But what about a Rosh Hashiva? Right? The Rosh Hashiva is not tempted. The Rav is not tempted, I'm going to go drive to the Dodger game. It's not going to happen. For him, there's a much finer question. Right? Can I, whether it's, the handle on the sink or whether it's, but there's going to be something very finely defined that to you or me is a triviality. Right? I had a discussion with, I'm a part-time amateur cyclist. Right? So this last year I bought, clips for my pedals to replace my pedals, and they're snapping cleated clips. Right? And the exact kind I want, they have one kind that's one weight and it's $30, another one that's a little bit lighter for $60, and another one that's much lighter for $250. So for me, cutting out those extra grams from 50 to 250 is just shtick. Right? For me to buy that perfect carbon fiber thing is just shtick. For what I ride and the way I ride, for a 50-mile ride, it doesn't really matter. It's just not there. For my buddy, who's a hardcore racer, right, the difference between moving, because again, that pedal stroke, you're pushing, right? It's that, to have weight up on the top of your bike is different than weight that you're moving around that crank. For him, when he's doing, hardcore races, those extra grams really matter. So when he looks at what to do to shave off things in technique or in equipment, he's looking at very, very fine details that really matter, that to me are shtick. But that's because he's a much better, high class, Cat 3 cyclist, and I'm a Cat 5, amateur, I wear the Lycra and look like a cyclist, but right, when you're 210 pounds, shaving off a couple extra grams isn't going to do it. right? When you're trying to get your bike from 14 pounds to 13.8, it matters. So a lot of things in halacha are that same way. So you have to be careful as you do halacha, where you have people who get pushed so quickly to very small, fine points without ever figuring out how to work on the gross detail stuff. It's like, work on the gross stuff first, and as you've got that down and you're working for a challenge and you get bigger and better, when you find yourself a Cat 3 Shabbos guy, then you're going to be working on grams, right? You're working on narrow stuff. So that said, in most things, a shogeg, God cuts you tremendous slack. A zadon is the guy who says, this just doesn't really matter, right? The idea of Eruv, a guy who's breaking Eruv is the guy who says, I know there's no Eruv, but I just don't give a hoot. Shabbos is just not that big, whatever it is, right? The guy who does, if you find out that you're in a business deal with somebody, and you find out that the guy took advantage of you, and it was supposed to be a 50-50 split, and it turned out to be a 49-51 split or whatever, and he took extra money. He took more in the deal, right, than he should have. You're angry, right? It's like, we're partners, and you took advantage of me. If you find out it's because the guy is stupid and can't do math, and he did the calculation, and it was an adding error, and he wouldn't have done it, and he figures it out and he remedies it, you're not going to be angry at him. You might think he's a doofus. But there's a whole different thing of, you're a doofus and you violated my trust and took advantage of me. Right? That's a zadon. You violated God's trust, you took advantage of it, and you said it just doesn't really matter. So generally, shogeg is treated in a very lenient fashion, and zadon is different. Because zadon doesn't matter if it's a big thing or a little thing in many ways. Zadon means I'm sticking my thumb in God's eye and saying, your law just doesn't matter. I'm not bound by it, so just go stick it. All right? That's zadon. So in learning, the shogeg is called a zadon. Why? So you're talking to an oncologist, and he's figuring out how to measure out medications to give you. And he doesn't read the manual. I don't read all those side effect things. They hand you a side effect sheet. You can take a drug and they hand you a side effect sheet that's 12 pages. But you know what? I darn well expect that my oncologist has read that side effects thing and he knows which drugs work together and doesn't. Because you're going to kill me if you don't. Right? If you recognize, if they tell you you have to go give your kid medication, and if you do it in the wrong way, you're going to kill your kid and damage your kid. Would you make sure you have it down perfectly? Would you go back and ask the doctor 14 different ways? So I have to give it to them in this order. It's got to be the saline first and the heparin rinse second. It's like, right? If it's life and death, or if it's significant, then you're going to make sure that you learn it. So how is it that people make errors in learning? They make errors in learning because it doesn't really matter. Right? When you're sitting in a high school English class and your teacher's going over the rules of semicolons, right? I'm in 10th grade and she spends weeks on semicolons. I came to a firm conclusion that it is just easier to rewrite the sentence and not use a semicolon. Right? I am 48 years old. I don't think I've ever used a semicolon since 10th grade. But she's like, you know what? It's just easier. I'm not going to learn how to use semicolons. It's not that important. You're making it way too difficult. I will rewrite the sentence. And I have pretty much gotten away without using a semicolon since 1980s.
Or you just make up your own way.
Yeah, whatever. 32 years. Who needs a semicolon, right? It's not that important, right? Whatever it is, if you're sitting in a class and it's just not that important, then you're not going to pay that much attention. I'm telling you, if they're giving you the regimen necessary to treat your kid, you are going to learn it. And if they're giving you the regimen, the order of what it's going to take to save someone's life, you're going to learn it. So a shogeg, a guy who makes an error in learning, means I didn't really care. It wasn't that important. Right? If you're learning, what are your responsibilities in loaning money? What counts as interest and what doesn't? What are ethical ways to treat, your neighbor? If you think those things are important, then you're going to learn them properly. The only reason you don't is because it's an act of will, right? A shogeg in turning on that light is I was unconscious and didn't know. A shogeg in learning means I didn't think it was important. And that's an act of choice, not an act of slipping. So in learning, a shogeg is considered a zadon. Because if you don't learn it, it's because you've decided that it's the equivalent of learning semicolons in 10th grade. It's just not that important. I don't really need to know the laws of carrying on Shabbos because, whatever. I'll do what I got to do. And if I blow it, I blow it. It's no big deal. I don't really need to learn monetary transaction stuff. It's not that important. Right? Now, maybe it doesn't say that there's a death penalty for doing it. It just says that that's a zadon, that that's an act of choice. Right? That learning, you don't accidentally not learn something. You fail to learn or you learn it wrong because you've made a mental cost-benefit analysis calculation that it wasn't important enough to learn. So it's shogeg is called a zadon. So that's our Mishnah.